Hello everyone, this is the Facts on JW channel, and today we have a special guest who is going to share her story of why she left the Jehovah's Witness religion. She actually was a convert to the religion when she was like 30 years old, so she did not grow up in Aren't you going to introduce our guest? You're right, I do need to introduce her. Her name is T, and she's going to share her story today. So let's hear her story. I'm very curious now to hear her story too. Sounds good. Without further ado, let's hear the interview. Hello everyone. Today I have a special guest. Her name is T, and she is going to tell us her story of how long you were a witness and what led you to waking up. So if you want to just tell me your story.
Okay, well, thanks for having me, Casey. I was a witness, I guess if you count from baptism to when I left, from 30 to 41. So I was not born in. I came in as an adult. And so I've been gone a little over 8 years now.
Okay. And what led you to questioning your beliefs?
Oh, it was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot. I would say the defining moment, though, happened when I was 36. My dad had died. And at that moment, I didn't want to hear anything about the resurrection. Hope. I felt something in my spirit that that teaching was not real, and that I really was not going to see my dad again, as I knew him. And so that was like the beginning. I would say I've always had doubts. Like I said, I came in as an adult, so I wasn't born in. I wasn't even associated growing up. I basically got introduced to the witnesses from someone that I was dating who had grew up that way but never got baptized. And so with my dad passing, I guess I allowed myself to embrace the doubts, and so kind of was going through the motions a little bit. And then I decided to go back to school for nursing. I was a teacher at the time. And so once I was in nursing school, it's a lot, I was an older person, but it gave me some separation from the routine of being a witness, the meetings, service, things like that. It was like, hey, I have to miss some meetings. I have to miss service, because, hey, I need to pass. I didn't left my teaching job, and betted on myself to become a nurse. And so that separation allowed me to kind of get back to who I was at the core without the witness thinking, just always on your brain. And so from there, I, became a nurse. And I guess the icing on the cake, or like the last straw, so to speak, was I ended up meeting my husband, who was not a witness. And I just didn't like the reaction that the witnesses had to me, marrying someone who wasn't a witness and not interested in being a witness, but wasn't opposed to me being a witness, clearly. After that, I left and never looked back.
And with your husband that you married who wasn't a witness, did he make you question your beliefs as a witness?
You know what? He never did. I mean, outside of, why would this man who checks, 99 boxes be presented in front of me, after 11 years of not dating anyone. And the only box he don't check is Jehovah's Witness. So I was just like, it just didn't seem to make sense as to be like, well, nope, can't date you. Nope, I have to only marry somebody who's a Jehovah's Witness, regardless of the other boxes. So he never spoke badly of the witnesses. He never would say anything like, well, why you have to go to the meeting? Or, he would never say any of those things. So like I said, prior to meeting him, I had these different experiences. My dad passing, nursing school, and just kind of getting that separation from the routine of being a witness. So he just kind of was like the icing on the cake, or like a really great reason to leave officially.
And did you have any family in in Jehovah's Witness?
I did not. I did not. I was the only one.
Okay.
I did find out that I had like some distant cousins, years I wouldn't know them. So it was like, cousins that I didn't necessarily grow up with, or, have a lot of interaction with.
Okay. And was there something that, so what made you become a witness? What was it that you liked about the religion that made you want to convert?
That's a great question. So at the time, I started studying, I was about 28, 29. And a few years prior to that, I had started going back to church, the church I grew up in, which was Baptist. I also attended Catholic school. So I felt like I was pretty open as far as religion because I had been exposed. But when I would go back to church as an adult, I don't know, I just felt like I wasn't getting answers to, life's questions, like I didn't like when people say, like, if a baby died in a car accident or a drive-by shooting, oh, God need another angel. And it's like, but to take a 2-year-old in such a, traumatic way and things of that nature. So I guess you could say life questions, those questions that, witnesses will come to your door and ask you, And so I had attended a memorial with that guy that I was dating, and was offered a Bible study, started studying. And so it was, I guess, I kind of got lured in from, you have a question, they taking you right to the Bible. Whereas in church, it wasn't always, I guess, that kind of like Q&A, and maybe the academic minded, ness of, how I think sometimes, maybe that made sense. Like, this is, orderly, and this is kind of making sense, because when I would go to church, it may be one scripture, but the whole sermon could be about, anything or what have you. It didn't like relate right back to it. So pretty much kind of being impressed with the order, the systematic way of the studying, and really feeling like I was getting some answers from the Bible about life's questions. I had progressed, I was what they call, progressive Bible study or what have you, because I was going to the meetings and things of that nature. And I like that it began on time and ended on time compared to church.
Yeah.
But just, basically being told when I did have questions, it'll make sense later. So you just, you're constantly being kind of love bombed and praised. And then it's like, well, now you know Jehovah, so what you gonna do? So now you feel guilty, because it's like, if you do try to back out and not move forward and get baptized, then they constantly letting you know you're gonna be destroyed, because it's too late, now.
Yeah. So they're really good at cherry picking scriptures. So they have an answer
Yeah.
for everything, and it sounds believable because
Mm-hmm.
it does say that, in this one verse, So I see.
Yep.
So you liked, what you were hearing. And then you were love bombed, but then, like, once things kind of got into the routine, you were no longer being love bombed, right? But were you ever disfellowshipped?
No, I never was disfellowshipped.
Okay, you just left.
I never, never got disfellowship or reproved or anything like that. But I definitely wasn't being love bombed, and like the heavy criticism that a lot of witnesses have. I started to receive that. The length of your skirt, the fit of your skirt. You should be doing more. You're not. At the time, you're single, children, you should be doing more. This sister can pioneer, you can pioneer too. Just
Very judgmental.
Yeah, the judgmental and the manipulation that, you can always be doing more, which
Yeah.
which is so exhausting once you realize, like, and you like, my best is never good enough, like, because that's what you're always being fed. Do more, give more, be more for the kingdom.
Whenever you started dating your now husband, they were judging you for that because he wasn't a witness, right?
Oh yes, yeah. So we had a pretty fast courtship. So I was, I guess you could say, secretly dating him. I didn't tell anyone at the Kingdom Hall because at that point, I like to call it like fading light. Like I didn't even know that's what I was doing, by using work or, just other things to be a legit excuse for missing the meetings. And so we had dated um before I told anyone at the Kingdom Hall. Let me see, I told November, maybe about 3.5 months. And so when he proposed and I accepted, of course, I posted on Facebook like everybody would do.
Yeah.
And witnesses who had not talked to me in years for what, for their own personal reasons. I'm getting texts and calls and all this stuff. I'm concerned about your soul. And it's like, ma'am, you have not called me in 5 years or 4 years or however long it's been. And now you're sending me a text. I'm concerned for your soul. Like, you don't even know anything about him. You just saw or heard on Facebook that I was engaged. And because nobody knows who the person is, one, you assumed it wasn't a witness. And then, and then just the fakeness of it all, you know. And so when I went to my congregation, which I think happened to be the very next day after that Facebook post, I did tell my one close friend because I wanted her to hear from me. She didn't have Facebook and she didn't really talk to people like that. And, it was like a smile and then oh no, because I told her, I said, he not a witness, and her husband, they changed the names, but he was the lead elder. I can't remember all the different names and stuff. And he really like, went in on me at the hall and was like, don't include the friends. Jehovah's not pleased. Da 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 da. All that did for me, but was making me double down. Cause it's like y'all making all these judgments and y'all have not even met them.
Yeah.
And I felt like, what's the difference between me marrying somebody who's not opposed and is a good man, for me, versus, these 3, 4 sisters in here who husbands, um, who had husbands prior to coming back to the hall or something like that, and they husbands don't come, and
Yeah.
y'all don't beat them up, y'all don't criticize them because they can't get their husband to, convert.
Yeah.
It's like a double standard.
Yes. But and then of course they would say that you have to marry only a believer,
Yes.
marry in the truth. So if you're
Yep.
not marrying in the truth and not marrying a believer, then you're sinning against Jehovah. That's the way they would see it. And they don't
Mm-hmm.
care if he's a great guy, you know.
Mm-mm.
And
Mm-mm.
as long as he believes, he could be he could be a believer and be abusive to his family, and that's okay.
And basically that's what I was told. Like, what was the saying they used to say? The worst witness is still better than the best worldly person. And
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
that don't make sense. Because there's a lot of people in this congregation who are horrible. Just because they're a Jehovah Witness, they don't get a pass from me.
Yeah, and a lot of times there's a very unhappy marriages in that religion.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there's no like sense of partnership.
Mm-hmm.
The man and the woman being a partner. It's more like the man is the boss. I mean,
Yep.
that's what they're taught, right? The man
Mm-hmm.
is to be the boss over his wife and children. So it's kind of hard to have a happy marriage when you feel as a man that, you're the boss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm sure not every Jehovah's Witness marriage is like that, but I'm just saying this is what they teach. They teach
Hmm.
that men are to be misogynistic.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Some of the brothers that they try to push my way, I'm like, why would you do that to me if you so-called care about a single sister when you know that this guy is not a solid person? Like, why are you looking to the woman to bring stability to the man's life, you know,
Yeah.
versus the other way around? But they did not like, that I had made my choice. And after that, tongue lashing that the elder basically put down, I went home. I unfriended all the witnesses that I could think of on my Facebook. And I, went on to plan my engagement party and then, my destination wedding.
And did you invite any witnesses to your wedding?
I did not invite any witnesses to my wedding. We got married pretty quickly after the engagement. So it was short notice for some people, was since it was destination wedding. However, I was told do not invite anybody, do not engage the friends. But one of my witness friends was like, I don't care what they say. Let me know what I can do. And so she did attend. That friend whose husband, went off on me. I didn't want to make things uncomfortable for her. Like if he's like, "Are you talking to her?" I didn't want to make things uncomfortable. But when I got back, I had my wedding pictures, and she did reach out, and I said, "Well, I wanted to send you the picture, but I didn't know if you want to see it." She's like, "Of course." Really sad with all the rules and things of that nature that they have people abide by, because they don't really make sense.
I know.
Um, they don't make sense. And so they actually did me a great thing, because by being so nasty, being so judgmental, it made it easy to just go.
Yeah.
And then that same brother, probably 4 years later, was it 4 years? Maybe even 5 years later, had his wife text me and say that he would like to, have a talk with me. And I'm like, what do you want to talk about? I've been gone. And he and another brother called, and the pleasantries, this, and that. And then they was like, well, we're just doing this, that, and the third. We want to know where to send your card. And I said, well, you don't need to send it anywhere. And he's like, well, aren't you not going to go back to the Kingdom Hall, or you're not going to go to where you live? And I was like, no. He said, well, why? Why is that? I said, because I don't want to go. And I think finally they hopefully close the book. I still get the, annual memorial text, but
Yeah.
as far as, I don't know if they read me off or said anything from any platform, because no one's ever said anything. And I do have um, three witness friends that still like go to that congregation.
So, did any of your witness friends ever find out that you might be celebrating holidays
Oh, they know.
and they never ratted on you?
Um, well, because I'm gone.
Hmm.
You know, I had two of the three have social media presence, and we are, connected on social media. So they do see when I say, happy birthday to people and things of that nature. But in my opinion, these are people that we connected on just like a soul to soul basis. We just happen to meet at the Kingdom Hall. So I wouldn't, and they diehards, in my opinion. But I think they have found that, you know, if she want to do that, that's fine. It's not like she's asking me to come to the Christmas party, kind of thing. So,
Okay.
um, it's not like we talking every day. And just like they know, don't invite me to the district or the regional or whatever. I don't want to come. I think I've made it clear. Like, I don't know if anybody even, well, I didn't mention it, but I do have a YouTube channel. And so I do, XJW type content, as well. But I don't know if they know about the channel, and I really don't even care, you know.
What's the name of your channel?
It's called Same OT. So Same OLETEE.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I'll make sure
Mm-hmm.
and leave that in the description for anyone who
Okay.
wants to check out your channel.
Yeah.
Is it about XJW stuff?
It's so initially it was just me being the niche, and of course that's part of it. And but I did start off with like a 3-part series about my whole how I became a witness and exited, and that kind of took off. And based on comments, I'm like, okay, people enjoy my XJW content, so it's not exclusively XJW, but it is heavy XJW. But I am a 50-year-old woman, so I do talk about, things related to Gen X. I do talk about health and wellness because I am a nurse practitioner. So it's, I would say, little of everything, but it is, I guess, still kind of heavy XJW.
Yeah. Did any of the doctrines make you wake you up? Like, because a lot of ex-witnesses wake up because of 1914
Hmm.
not adding up. Did
Hmm.
you ever question any of the doctrines at all, or you just were you just didn't care for the way you were treated?
I wouldn't say I was necessarily a doctrine person. I know, and I think that's because I wasn't born and raised in it, and like with the numbers and the years and all this stuff, I just would like let it kind of go over my head because I'm like, the this and the that and the calculate. I'm like, it is what it is. It's something in the past. I like to say that I had 10 toes down moments, but in hindsight, I was never like a 10 toes down my whole life and being type of witness. And this is me in hindsight, because it's like, oh, I did question this. Oh, I did question that. Like I said, having that feeling when my dad died that there's no such thing as resurrection hope because everything in me is saying he's gone as far as, how I knew him. When I became a nurse, I was really concerned about having to give blood to somebody and then worrying about like, does that make me blood guilty? And I used to be like, but this is my job. So now I have to barter with somebody. And now it's just weird if I have to ask another nurse, hey, because of my religion, I don't know if I should do this. Can you hang the blood for the person? The person, hemoglobin is dropping, and I'm worrying about this stuff. Um, things that I saw, I think we mentioned it earlier about like wives and how some JW men, husbands, just feel like, they're the boss. I saw some things and I was like, there's no way that this would happen in my marriage. And my first thought is, I'm going to go to the elders. I'm probably going to bop you upside the head and then I'm going to call the police.
Yeah.
you know, so it was the things like that. And then just realizing with the brainwashing and the manipulation that that whole putting on a new personality is really just kind of almost like to strip your soul. And so everything that I was, it was always like kind of criticized. Here, I came in as a educated person. I had 2 degrees, and then I got a lot of pushback when I went to school to become a nurse because it was like, we already have, a great job and this and that. It's like, yeah, but I'm tired of this. I want to do something different, that I'm more passionate about. So, always hearing about how higher education is the devil, and it's like, well, hello, I'm a highly educated person. For me, it was more those type of things, not the more weightier things. And then as I woke up and would watch XJW content, then it will be like, oh my God, I remember questioning that. Like, even when they came out with the jw.org and the broadcast and all that stuff, I never tuned in. And everybody was acting like it was the best thing in the world. And I was like, I can barely keep up with this reading. Now you think I'm supposed to watch you, like your news station? I didn't even know what it was. I was really like mentally tapped out, just all the things that started to change. And I was just like, if this a perfect organization and all this, why is it all these changes? You
And
know,
were you really good about preparing for the meetings, commenting at the meetings? Were you a regular pioneer, anything like that?
I was never a regular pioneer. I attempted to do, they do the little special auxiliary pioneer for a month kind of thing around a memorial. And to be honest, I never really had an interest in it. I didn't. I tried because you're trying to think of what's the next level. How do I get this level of excitement or fulfillment like these other pioneers or the other people in the congregation who just, I just so like, and it's like, I don't feel that way. So zealous and yes, and I'm like, I don't feel this way. I don't get excited because the circuit overseer is coming. Now, we had a couple who really, I love their delivery style, and it wasn't so, stuffy. So I did enjoy when they came, but it was, I gotta just stop my whole life because this one person's coming, you know?
Right.
Um, so never did that. But a funny story, once I became a nurse, I was like, oh, they'll probably finally approve my what was it called, RBC application, because they needed people to sit at the first aid station, when they had these building projects. And so I was like, oh, okay, now that I'm a nurse, they'll approve it for sure. But they didn't. And they gave me the run around, then they was like, oh, we lost the application, submit again. But oh, by the way, keep showing up for service, try to get more hours. I didn't put two and two together until I left that I good enough witness. I thought it had to be about me having the skill set, but it wasn't. I wasn't a good enough witness. Like my time wasn't good enough. I wasn't zealous enough to get that privilege. But I could clean the bathrooms and I can vacuum and things of that nature. So it's just like waking up. I just realized so much stuff that I just got played, basically that's how I feel. Like I got duped. I call it bait and switch. I got bait and switched. And unfortunately, the damage had kind of been done. But, thankfully, things occurred that allowed me to pull back so that controlled thinking could kind of fade away.
Mhm. And did you ever go through like when you're waking up and realizing that this is not the truth?
Mm-hmm.
Was that hard for you to accept that? Because a lot of ex-witnesses do have a hard time with it, but maybe not for you because you came in as an adult. So did you feel like it was hard, or did you just say, this is easy and I can leave?
Well, my husband was a good exit reason. So that part was easy, right? Establishing this new life with this person. But I was filled with witness guilt. So even though I was happy, I was in love, I still felt guilty, felt guilty because I married him. I felt guilty because I did not attempt to go to a meeting out where I live. My congregation was in the south suburbs of Chicago. I'm originally from Chicago, and then now I live in like the northwest suburbs of Chicago. And I didn't do those things. I was filled with witness guilt, and it wasn't until meeting with a friend at the time who was telling me about somebody else in the congregation had videos. And I'm like, what kind of videos? you know, and I knew I couldn't ask her too many details because then she would throw it back on me, even though she was here at lunch telling me that the person had videos, right? But I knew if I asked too many questions because I was the weaker witness, right? Inactive or whatever they wanted to label me, I knew I couldn't ask. But I came home and I was like, maybe they're on YouTube. And I put in, ex Jehovah Witnesses or, Jehovah Witness videos, whatever I might have put in. And I just went down a rabbit hole.
Uh,
And I think for me, what I felt was more shame. The witness guilt left. But for me, and I even have moments, even with having my own channel now, I still have moments of shame because it's like, I'm street, I'm book smart. How did this happen?
mhm.
How did this happen? How did you know, I go into more detail in, I guess, waking up story, but there were several times that I wanted, I tried to pull away from them while we were still just studying. Then I will let them kind of guilt me, you know. So then you're right back into the fold, and then at one time was just thinking like, I'll just study and go to the hall, for the rest of my life. But I don't think I want to get baptized, because once you get baptized, now it's like, it's a different level. But then you get the pressure, because the CO come and they see that you've been studying for 12 months. So now they telling that pioneer, hey, she better, piss or get off the pot, so, you know, so you just going along, But I think because I think that I don't have as many struggles as ones who were born and raised in it, and this is all they know, because I did have life experience prior to this, and because cut off like my family. I didn't cut off, my non-witness, friends. Now, were we doing things that we might have done before? Maybe not, but yeah, did I go to sporting events with some of these friends? Yeah, I did. Did I tell the witness friends? I learned not to. So no, I didn't. So I wouldn't say I had a double life. I think I had more a balanced life. Because I never understood the rationale in me cutting off my biological family for these people who in turn end up, being some serious backstabbers. So,
Yeah. Right. They want you to isolate you.
mhm.
That's what makes it a cult too, right? Because
Yeah.
the shunning policy, and that they want to isolate you away from any of the non-witness people, whether they be friends or family. And then you just have them. And then if you're in this little bubble, and as soon as you step outside that bubble, you don't have anybody. And
Hmm.
that's how they want you to feel, that you just have
Yeah.
them and nobody else, but you have to follow all these rules or you're gonna get kicked out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, that's the diabolical aspect of it, right? It's setting you up to either you gonna stay in or you gonna struggle if you leave, and so like when I do watch other people's videos, the ones who may have had something else going on, maybe they had a connection with a cousin, or maybe they did go to the community college, they seem to fare better. But I get a lot of people who comment and engage with my channel and stuff like that, who didn't do that, and they are still struggling, even though it may be 10, 20, 30 years since they left. And then when you think about it, that's sad, because that lets you know just how hard that grip is,
Yeah.
you know. Mm-hmm.
And be physically out and mentally in for
Yes.
your whole
Yes.
life.
Yeah. I think a good fair amount of the, like, JW, I call them JW comments on my
Oh yeah.
content, are that's who it is. Because I'm like, if you going to the hall every week and going out in service, why are you here? So I think it's those physically out, mentally in people
Yeah.
that love to come and watch the content and comment.
Yeah, I have some witnesses too that comment on my channel. So, and and maybe because I thought the same thing, like, well, you must be questioning your own beliefs, or you must be curious, and you might
Hmm.
not be an active witness, because why would you be here, right?
Yes.
Looking at
Yes.
XJW content.
I mean, I get some, it seemed like they the first ones to comment soon as the video upload.
Yeah,
It's like, okay, welcome back.
yeah, that's funny. And then, so you said that your background was you Baptist and Catholic?
No, so I grew up going to a Baptist church. I
Okay.
was, my first baptism was at a Baptist church. But some of my elementary school and all of my high school, I did attend Catholic high schools.
Oh,
I mean, Catholic schools.
right.
So, not so much at the elementary level. Like we had to go to mass. My family. I think that you had to go maybe 4 times a year or something like that. But in high school, we actually took, religion classes,
Hmm.
and things of that nature. So, I considered myself open, and I think that's why I didn't recognize the harm with the witnesses. And basically, I'm kind of like an open book. I'm real approachable, so I basically set the table for them in the Bible study of everything, questions that I might have had, and this and that, and they was able to just, come prepared, to just be like boom, boom, boom. In hindsight, I realized that's what I did. And that's basically what happened. But I've been pretty open and investigate things. Like we will get the magazines from the witnesses sometime, and there'll be a good one in the Awake or something like that that interests me because of my science background. So I didn't see the harm, which most people will not. You see the shiny image, but once you get in, that's when it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because you had some kind of a variety of exposure within the
Hmm.
Christian realm. So
Hmm.
Baptist, and then you had your Catholic school, then you became a Jehovah's Witness. Do you follow anything now, today?
You know what? Coming out of the witnesses, I just was like, I don't know what to believe. I went through that phase, you know. I did still feel like, it's something bigger than all of us. So I guess that would have made me at the time, I guess maybe an agnostic, if I, was just gonna put something on there. But as time has gone on, like I said, it's been 8 years since I've been out. I do find myself kind of gearing back towards my Baptist roots. But I don't necessarily attend church. But my grandma recently passed in December. And so for her funeral, that was the first time being back in the church I grew up in. And, from going from being a witness, you go into church, it's just like, oh, but it felt like home.
Oh,
It felt like home. And I was so happy that I didn't have that witness. What do they like to say? Like if you choose to go
guilt.
to a, yeah, the witness guilt, but like I didn't have to be like, oh, is this messing with my conscience? Is this a conscience matter? You know how they'll say, oh, if
Oh,
you have a family member who's has a funeral or a wedding in a church, it's a conscience matter if you attend.
right.
But then again, they'll turn around and say, but remember, it could stumble to friends.
Yeah.
It's like
Never right
you can,
answer.
yeah, you can never win.
Yeah.
You can never win. And it's like I can see clearly why so many witnesses um, are depressed and filled with anxiety.
Yes, because they never feel good enough. The
Never feel
emotion.
good enough.
Yeah.
You know, Jehovah's always watching. And, you just waiting on the end to come. It's
Yeah.
like, so it's no joy. It's no joy. It's no happiness. It's nothing to look forward to in this life.
Right.
And it's just messy. It's just messy.
And like XJW Critical Thinker, JT and Lady C, you might know their channel.
Yep.
He always called it the living in the fog, fear, obligation, guilt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly how witnesses feel because
Yep.
they're not worthy enough, they're not good enough, they might not make it, and they have to do all these works to make it. And even if they are doing them, they still don't feel like they're good enough. And that's also why it's called a doomsday cult because they're
Yes.
anxiously waiting this Armageddon,
Mm-hmm.
impending Armageddon any day now. What if I don't make it? And so this kind
Yeah.
of always living in this fear. It's not the way
Yeah.
we should feel. You don't want to live your whole life living in fear.
Yes. Yeah. um JT and Lady C, they was the first ones. So
Yeah.
I was the first video that I came across when I went on YouTube, and I went down the rabbit hole on their channel, and then just everyone that came up, after that. So yeah, I'm very familiar with their channel, but it is true, and it's sad, and like my heart goes out to um the witnesses, ones that I once considered a friend. It- I feel bad for them, because it's just like the life you live in is probably no way to really live, because you, like you say, you just doing things out of fear, obligation, or guilt,
Yeah. And you don't
and
get to
not a
really
true
enjoy
desire.
life.
Yep, not a true desire. That was another thing that I knew, that I was like getting tired of it. You would get in a car group, and it could be a Saturday. It's, we in the Chicagoland area, so maybe the weather's nice, and you say, hey, how you doing, sister so and so. Oh, just waiting on the end, just waiting on the end. I'm just so ready for the end to come. And it's just like, that's when I knew, like, I don't want to be these people. I do not want to be these people that all I talk about every third word is, I'm just waiting on the end. Like, what about today? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just so many things when I look back, that I guess um like I say, I could tell that I didn't just say I believe everything that this governing body or these publications are saying, that it's, I guess my own thinking was, penetrating.
Yeah. It probably
Hmm.
helped that you didn't grow up in it because you still had your own critical thinking skills some. And
Hmm.
maybe that's why it was easier for you to leave and not feel like you were mourning over, because people who, like me, who grow up in it,
Yes.
and then we realize we were lied to. It's like it's a mourning process. It's a grieving
Yes.
process. It's really
Yeah.
hard to accept that, because that's all you know in the beginning, right? And you don't have anything else to compare it to. So it's good that you had
Hmm.
and other sources, like your family who weren't in that religion, and you had other exposures before the witnesses.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah,
your
that's so.
husband, does he follow anything in particular?
No, he grew up going to was it Baptist or non-denominational churches. So he considers himself a Christian, or what have you. But he's not big on like organized religion now as an adult. He doesn't feel like, that he has to go to church, or, to have that connection and relationship with God. And from the time we first started talking to our first date was probably about 5 weeks. And I didn't tell him that I was a witness, because I was like, no sense in telling them. I wasn't one of those witnesses. You know how they will say, pull out your watchtower at lunch at work and do your watchtower and do this. Like, I didn't walk around with a big JW across my chest. Like, I just, if it came up, it came up. I didn't lead with that. And so I was like, if I get on this date and I don't really like the guy, I don't even need to tell him. And so when we got there, I was like, oh, I really like him, because we had great phone conversations. But like in person, I was like, oh, yeah, I think this might go somewhere. And so I told him, I got something to tell you. And I, said, hey, I'm a Jehovah Witness. And his face didn't change or nothing like that. And so, like, after we were married, months later and stuff, we were talking, and he said, yeah, when you said that, he said, no, my face didn't change. He said, but on the inside, I was thinking, oh my gosh, she's so lost. She's so lost.
But it didn't stop him from marrying you.
Yeah, yeah. Because his thinking was, That's if that's what she want to do, that's fine. I like all these things about her, you know, and long as she don't try to convert me. And so he had reassurance that I wouldn't do that because I hadn't done it in 5 weeks. You know, I just was getting to know him and he was getting to know me. Cause I didn't as much as they wanted us to, I didn't want my sole identity to be I'm a Jehovah Witness. No, I'm this woman, you know, who has these life experiences and things of that nature. I'm not just a JW. So you know, that's what we talked about. He always say that he's like, oh, she's so lost. She's so-
Yeah, and you never tried to convert him?
Mm-mm, mm-mm. And I'm gonna tell you why. I mean, one, because I was lightly fading or whatever. You know, I had already been thinking of how can I get out of this. I didn't want to be married to no JW man because if because you it's not just you're a woman in this congregation, so now you know if your husband's not doing right by you, so to speak, and you go to the elders thinking that they're going to help, they're going to tell you, well, do more of this, that, and the third, and maybe that, you know, make him do better. So it's like I don't need these other men in my marriage, you know. um and I definitely didn't want to be married to somebody who felt like they wanted to control or rule, and that's what I felt. Or just want to get married because they want to have sex.
Yeah.
They want to maintain a squeaky clean image, and not, you know, YouTube, TikTok, you know, social media is exposing, and people are like, I didn't know this. You know, I have family members because their experience of Jehovah's Witnesses is just me. So when I'm around them, I'm just, you know, regular cousin, regular sister, you know, regular daughter. And so it's things that they didn't know. Like they started watching my channel and they were like, I didn't know you was going through that. I didn't know you experienced that. I didn't know they said that, you know, and they started getting mad because it's like they didn't know you. How could they say that? How could they do that? You know, I had some pretty horrible things done to me. And I think it's because I didn't grow up, um, you know, in the organization. I was coming in as a single woman, you know, and things of that nature. And they, you know, the congregation I went to, they made it seem like if you want a witness and married, you just got to be out here fornicating with everybody. And it's like, no, that must be what you want to do, because everybody not doing that. Like it's crazy how they think like they the only ones with morals or you know some type of standard or what have you. It blows my mind. It
Yeah.
blows my mind.
Oh, and so, and it's true, like the witnesses definitely have they have a misconception of non-witnesses' morals. They think everybody in the world is just having orgies and stuff like that, you know,
Exactly.
and that's not the
Exactly.
case.
You're
Um,
right.
and so, like as a single sister, I've never experienced this myself. So, because I was always married, um, did did they think that you should be getting married as soon as possible, or did they think that it was better to be single? Because they always told us it's good to be single, so you can, you know, live for the organization and go out and pioneer and stuff.
I would like to say, I think in my particular case, they were pushing uh, for marriage, but not for my benefit, for the benefit of the men that they were trying to push my way.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
because I was a homeowner. I had a pretty good career as a teacher. Um, and matter of fact, some of them found out how much I made. So then, you know, people's attitudes change, you know. I feel like they was pushing more so for the men and what they would benefit versus my what would benefit me. Because the ones that they were pushing outside of being a Jehovah's Witness, what did they have to offer? Because if I'm coming to the table with this, what are, you know, they need a table too. They don't need to come pull their chair up to my table.
Yeah, so it sounds like maybe there were some men that were wanting to take advantage of your situation.
Absolutely, absolutely. The bed part, what they want to do in the bed, the money part, insurance and stability,
Yeah.
already owning a home and things of that nature, you know. But I never gave those people the time of day.
Yeah.
Like
It's good
the
you
bulk
all
of,
through the lies.
yeah, the bulk of my witness experience, like I said, from the time I was like 30 when I got baptized to 41, I didn't go out on a date, with anybody. Because I was just like, I'm good, like if the person's not amazing and things of that nature. And later in life, um, probably when I was about 38, 39, that's when I had a revelation. And I was telling my mom, I said, I just can't imagine if I meet somebody, they check 99 boxes, but the one box they don't check, witness, that I wouldn't give them, a try. I said, that just don't make sense to me. I understand what they saying. I understand what scriptures they using, but it don't make sense,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because that's just how you choose to worship. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. Well, that's
So
good. You definitely, it sounds like you always had your wits about you all along, and you weren't like 100% brainwashed, right? Because you had that guilt, of course, about how they guilt you into like you're not doing enough, but it sounds like you
mhm.
still were willing to think outside the box, like with a mate, for example. So that's
Yes.
good.
Yes, I mean, like with a lot of things, a mate, higher education, career, even just having a side hustle at one time. Um, I'm like, y'all say a prayer at the end, y'all include the single sisters and the elderly ones in y'all prayer, but nobody's gonna pay my bills.
That's true.
Yeah, so this all sounds well and good, in theory, but I'm a single woman who owns a home and have responsibilities. So no, I'm gonna do what I need to do because nobody here is gonna help me, you know?
That's for sure. They don't help out in the community at all, you know.
That was another thing that I always like question. I'm like, churches will do clothes drives or food drives or back to school, book bags, just, anything, whether they do it every month, every week, every day. But we tell people, oh, giving you this track is the best thing I can do for your life. If this person is homeless, this track don't mean nothing. They need to try to figure out how they're gonna eat today.
Yeah,
So proud to say that, like, this is everlasting life. This is, I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, I definitely had moments where I was just like, what am I doing? You know? Um, and it's so funny, like before I met my husband, I actually was planning to move to Atlanta. I had lived in Atlanta in my early 20s. And I was coming up with a plan, like, okay, when I move to Atlanta, I'm not going to go to a Kingdom Hall. And if I need to, I'll get my phone number changed and then they can't call me. Like I was planning an escape plan, like because I felt like they just would not let me go. I wasn't doing anything for them to, disfellowship me or whatever. So it just was like, that's crazy. Like in hindsight, I think back and I'm like, that's crazy that to get out of a religion, you thinking of an escape plan and moving to a whole nother state and, getting a new phone number just so that they'll leave you alone.
yeah, that's how you know you're in a high control group because they
Yeah.
want to control everything you do. And
Yes,
also, like in marriages, the elders, they are the nosiest people.
absolutely.
And they, of course, they say that, like, if you're in a judicial committee with them, they say that, it's the whole thing secret. No, it's not. They're telling everybody they can think of,
Hmm.
especially their wives. So it's just nothing but a bunch of busybodies in there.
Oh, yeah. Everybody is super nosy. Um, It's things that I shouldn't have known as like a lowly publisher with no connections, no family ties. It's things that I was finding out that I know I shouldn't have known. I wasn't in the upper echelons of the congregation, but it's because people running their mouth,
Yeah.
you know? And I think that was another reason why I was like, I would never give any of these men the satisfaction of being married or thinking we're going to share a bed, because I felt like they would tell everybody. I don't know. That's just how I felt.
If there's any kind of marital problems, they always, it's like, oh, let's go straight to the elders and tell them they're not qualified counselors. They can't give
Yes.
you marriage advice.
Yes. Absolutely. I have my moments of like shame, and then I just have to tell myself like we have to extend grace, because anybody can fall, victim to a situation, no matter how smart you are, how savvy you are. But the beauty is, I did question, even when I may not verbalize it. I did, at least have those questions in my head, and I eventually left. You know, I do regret some things, like I feel like for the most part, I kind of escaped unscathed, so to speak. It is a few things that I do uh, wish I had not become, a witness. Like when my father passed in the last 6 years of his life, he didn't get to hear me say happy birthday. He didn't get to hear me say happy Father's Day. I'm coming up with all these workarounds. Oh, you're a year older. Oh, you're my dad every day. And my dad, loved to hear those things. So it's things like that. Yeah, it didn't stop me from switching careers and earning money and those kind of things, but just the small things, missing out on some of the holidays, with family. I kind of got away a little bit,
Yeah.
not as damaged.
Well, you just faded away and you became
Yeah.
inactive and just disappeared.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
And you do have family that you get to spend the holidays with and celebrate birthdays and all that now,
Yes.
and you
Yes.
did before. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
That's good.
So and I mean, my family still wanted me to come, to all the things. Me and my husband, we celebrate our birthday. We don't do nothing, too crazy. I turned 50 this year, so we did do a cruise. But we don't necessarily do, big things or trips. Just because we both born in January, 2 days apart. So
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Well, happy 50th.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
And let me ask you something else. Did you ever believe that the governing body were the mouthpiece of Jehovah God here on earth?
How do we know? Right? Because you got this pastor that say they the mouthpiece of God, or you got this, the Pope who is, this, blah blah blah. So I was just like, I don't know. I don't know. They, like outside of the witnesses, like in the Baptist or non-denominational, they'll call it a calling. I got a calling on my life, right? And then that's why they become a pastor or minister, or, whatever, or a priest or what have you. So I think for me, I just wrapped it around my head, kind of like they like a pastor or a priest or what have you. Like this is what I'm thinking, when I was in the midst of it. But I had went on a Bethel trip,
Oh,
and when I was there at Bethel, I was like, this reads like a museum. And at that time, I think I felt like I couldn't put my finger on it, but I was like, something don't seem right here.
hmm. It's
I was
definitely
like,
like a museum.
yeah. I was like, something don't seem right. I'm like, okay, yeah, all these people, they working for peanuts, basically, what, $150 stipend. Okay, sure, they get their clothes washed and their hair cut and this and that. And it's just like, oh, it's a privilege to eat with the Bethelites, and something wasn't right. And then like as I woke up and you start looking at people's channels, who kind of go into those, weightier, deeper kind of things. My stuff is more like commentary kind of thing, but it's it's very enlightening with all the things that have been happening, like with the Australian Royal Commission and how they're like, oh, well, we can't say that we're the mouthpiece of God and, you know, all this, or we're not, whatever the term they use, just all these things. So it's like stuff that I question is coming back. Like you be at the circuit assembly and it's like, when you're in your congregation, you just make your check out to like congregation of blah, blah, blah. But now you're at the circuit assembly. So it's like, oh, you make it out to Watchtower and, you know, Bible and Tract Society and this isn't. And it just was like, what is going on? You know, and so now that I'm fully woke, you're like, yeah, this is one big corporation.
Mm.
And
Yep.
they the board of directors. That's basically what it is.
Yes.
They did the board of directors, and they technically got equal power to kind of X out the next one. That's all it is.
Yeah, that's true. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and coming on here today to share your story. And it's really cool to hear everyone's story. There is a little difference between everyone's story. There's a little difference, but there's always something similar too. And yours is kind of unique because you did not grow up a witness. So that's pretty cool that you were able to realize that this was not the truth
Yes.
after you converted as an adult. But it's like you still had your doubts. They were kind of in the back of your head. It sounds
Yes.
like.
Yep. Definitely was in the bag.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on today, and I'll make sure and put in the description below the name of your channel,
All
which
right.
was, say that again, what was it?
It's same OT, same OLETTEE.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
So that was a great interview. Thank you, T, for your interview and sharing your story. What did you think, KC? Great interview? Absolutely. Absolutely. Great interview. So for everyone out there, make sure you like and subscribe, comment, and share. And this is the Facts on JW channel. And if you'd like, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/facts on JW. Thank you so much for your support, and we will see you again soon.